Prabhupada Paramhamsa Parivrajakata Astar Satyasivanga Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai, Anantakoti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai, Granthara Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai, Shri Shri Radha Govardhanari Ki Jai, Shri Shri Krishna Balaram Giraj Ki Jai, Shri Shri Gauranitai Ki Jai, Nitai Gaura Premanandi, Haribol. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Shri Guru Guru and Grandpa. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Maya Timirandasya Ganandana Shalakaya Chakshurun Maditam Nina Tasma Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Sayarupa Karamayam Darati Svapadantikam. Hare Krishna, everyone. I don't know if any of you came here this morning specifically to hear Ajita Prabhu because he's on the roster, but I'm filling in for him, so I apologize if any of you did. I think this microphone is gradually, it slips.
Could you introduce yourself?
So yes, I'm Hladini Devi Dasi. I've been around New Govardhana for quite some time, but I've been away for a couple of years and now I'm back. So it's very nice to meet some new faces here and some old ones as well. Yeah. So this morning we're reading from Canto 2, The Cosmic Manifestation, Chapter 5, The Cause of All Causes. I put together this little PowerPoint presentation because I just like doing it. Hopefully our software is going to work properly. So text 39. Girivayam jana lokosya tapoloka stanadvayat murdabi satyalokastu brahmaloka sanatanaha Girivayam jana lokasya tapoloka stanadvayat murdabi satyalokastu brahmaloka sanatanaha. Jai Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. From the forefront of the chest up to the neck of the universal form of the Lord are situated the planetary systems named Janaloka and Tapaloka, whereas Satyaloka, the topmost planetary system, is situated on the head of the form. The spiritual planets, however, are eternal. Translation repeat. From the forefront of the chest up to the neck of the universal form of the Lord are situated the planetary systems named Janaloka and Tapaloka. Whereas Satyaloka, the topmost planetary system, is situated on the head of the form. The spiritual planets, however, are eternal. Alright, so this is Srila Prabhupada's purport. It's a little bit of a long purport. Many times in these pages we have discussed the spiritual planets situated beyond the material sky, and the description is corroborated in this verse. The word Sanatan is significant. This very idea of eternity is expressed in the Bhagavad Gita. Sorry, can I just ask somebody to close the door? It's a little bit cool with the breezes coming in. Is that all right? Or just close them most of the way? Thank you. So this very idea of eternity is expressed in the Bhagavad Gita 8.20, where it is said that beyond the material creation is the spiritual sky, where everything is eternal. Sometimes Satyaloka, the planet in which Brahma resides, is also called Brahmaloka, but the Brahmaloka mentioned here is not the same as the Satyaloka planetary system. This Brahmaloka is eternal, whereas the Satyaloka planetary system is not eternal. And to distinguish between the two, the adjective Sanatana has been used in this case. According to Srila Jiva Goswami, this Brahmaloka is the loka or abode of Brahman or the Supreme Lord. In the spiritual sky, all the planets are as good as the Lord himself. The Lord is all spirit, and his name, fame, glories, qualities, pastimes, etc. are all non-different from him because he is absolute. As such, the planets in the kingdom of God are also non-different from him. In those planets, there is no difference between the body and the soul, nor is there any influence of time as we experience it in the material world. And in addition to there being no influence of time, the planets in Brahmaloka, due to being spiritual, are never annihilated. All variegatedness in the spiritual planets is also one with the Lord, and therefore the Vedic aphorism Ekam Eva Dvitiyam is fully realized in that Sanatana atmosphere of spiritual variegatedness. This material world is only a shadow phantasmagoria of the spiritual kingdom of the Lord, and because it is a shadow, it is never eternal. The variegatedness in the material world of duality, spirit and matter, cannot be compared to that of the spiritual world. Because of a poor fund of knowledge, less intelligent persons sometimes mistake the conditions of the shadow world to be equivalent to those of the spiritual world, and thus they mistake the Lord and his pastimes in the material world to be one with the conditioned souls and their activities. The Lord condemns such less intelligent persons in the Bhagavad Gita 9:11. Avajananti mam buddha manushim tanum ashritam param bhava majananto mama buddha maheshwaram. Whenever the Lord incarnates, he does so in his full internal potency, Atmamaya, and less intelligent persons mistake him to be one of the material creations. Srila Sridhar Swami, therefore, rightly commenting on this verse, says that the Brahmaloka mentioned here is Vaikuntha, the kingdom of God, which is Sanatana, or eternal, and is therefore not exactly like the material creations described above. The Virat universal form of the Lord is an imagination for the material world. It has nothing to do with the spiritual world or the kingdom of God. Sorry. Can you please get my gloves out of my bag? I'm still really cold. Okay. So, they're pink in a plastic bag. Okay. So this is a diagram of our universe. We can see our own planet in the middle, Bhurloka. And ordinarily when we say Brahmaloka, of course we do refer to the topmost planet within the material universe as where Lord Brahma, the secondary creator, resides. So that planet is known as Satyaloka. But here Srila Prabhupada is assuring us that the Brahmaloka mentioned in this verse is not that particular loka. Rather it is the Supreme Lord's residence within the spiritual realm. And here within this red circle, this is where we see Janaloka, Tapaloka and Satyaloka. And as Vasishrestha Prabhu mentioned yesterday, all these higher planets, higher material planets, they have a high quality of material life in terms of offering better, shall we say, material facility compared to the lower material planets. But of course, above all the material universes exists the eternal spiritual planets, with Srila Prabhupada commenting that the distinction between these two planetary realms is so great that the material realm should be considered as a shadow phantasmagoria of the spiritual kingdom. So as this distinction has appeared in this verse, Srila Prabhupada has chosen to speak mainly on this distinction between the material and spiritual realms, and how less intelligent people, that's people who are overcome by the material energy, they cannot or they will not accept the spiritual realm or Krishna himself as the all-powerful transcendental Lord. So Srila Prabhupada starts his purport by quoting this Bhagavad Gita, verse 8:20. Parastasmat bhavanyo vyakto vyaktat sanatanaha yasa sarveshu bhutteshu nashyatsu na vinashyati. Yet there is another unmanifest nature which is eternal and is transcendental to this manifested and unmanifested matter. It is supreme and is never annihilated. When all in this world is annihilated, that part remains as it is. And in the purport to this verse, Prabhupada says, Krishna's superior energy is completely opposite in quality to material nature. Superior and inferior nature are explained in the 7th chapter. And we're going to have a closer look at chapter 7 towards the end of the class. Throughout the first half of chapter 7, of course, Krishna is establishing his position as the source of all material and spiritual manifestations, that he is above the workings of the material energy, and he also establishes his own personal nature is entirely transcendental. So, in the 10th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, it is described that impersonalists and materialists, they cannot actually understand the absolute nature of Krishna or the transcendental nature of the spiritual realm. So generally it is very difficult for materially embodied beings, materially embodied jivas, to grasp any notion of that which is eternal, as well as any notion of that which is absolute. And this is because here in the material world, everything has a beginning and an ending, a beginning and an ending, beginning and an ending. Everything that is manifest here around us at the moment has an expiry date on it, and this is relevant to both organic and inorganic matter as well. So from where does the ordinary materially conditioned mind learn eternality? The notion of eternity is, in effect, not available for our material senses to perceive. But still we can understand by simple logic that there must be some principle of the eternal, right? And the other day in class I made a comment that if you take a very basic logic path of reasoning and you inquire about the absolute cause or the absolute source of anything, it doesn't really matter what it is, you cannot end up anywhere else but at the principle of eternality, right? That which is eternal, right? So all natural and synthetic materials, they come from organic matter originally, right? Let's take something within this temple room, like these vinyl floor cushions that you're all sitting on. So these are probably made from what we call polyvinyl chloride, right? It's a type of plastic. And polyvinyl chloride is actually derived from salt and oil. Of course, you know, they do all sorts of strange things to the salt and oil to get it into that plastic shape. So in other words, natural, even synthetic materials, they have their source in natural materials. And even scientists, they understand that they cannot actually create natural elements, natural materials. They can only manipulate them to manufacture various types of items. And where do these natural elements come from? Well, they haven't just appeared out of nothing, right? You cannot get something out of nothing. Do we have any example within any logical thinking or any scientific thinking where anyone has ever got something out of nothing? No, there is no such reasoning, it doesn't exist. So there has to be a different principle that is separate to these temporary elements, and something that doesn't have an expiry date on it. And that, you know, gives cause to the rise of temporary material elements. Anyway, this kind of thinking, this sort of logical path of reasoning, it's very, very simple. Even a child can do it. But for the atheistic mind, they actually refuse to go down that pathway. They just ignore it, or they divert that line of reasoning, which is, why today we don't have theistic principles being a part of our scientific process within our academic facilities. So similarly, the materially conditioned mind struggles with understanding the principle of the absolute, right? And this is because here in the material world, everything that we encounter is what we may call provisional, right? It's partial and it's incomplete. So in fact, the ongoing struggle of the materially embodied jiva, it may be described as his struggle to make himself absolute or complete, right? He wants to be independent, he wants to be in charge of his own destiny, right? So he's chasing this dream of experiencing a life in which there is no incompleteness, right? But in doing so, he most of the time, he will ignore the Supreme Lord, who is in fact the only one who can make his life complete. Right, so this is the sad situation. This is the material affliction of the jiva in this material concept of life. So Krishna, as we know, he is the absolute, supreme, original and indestructible cause and source of both spiritual and mundane manifestations. There is no difference between Krishna's form, name, qualities and pastimes. There is no difference between Krishna's body and his soul. All his senses are transcendental and any one of them can perform the actions of any other sense. Right? He is omnipotent, omniscient and omnipresent. He expands himself into both personal and impersonal aspects. All creations rest in him and he is the supreme controller of all that be. And yet he is eternally simply just enjoying himself with his loving devotees. So this is the unfathomable nature of the Supreme Person who is absolute in every aspect. So Krishna is of course also the master of the senses of all conscious beings as well as being their well-wisher. And it is by his causeless mercy that all his parts and parcels can experience variegatedness in their everyday lives. So I want to discuss this variegatedness because Srila Prabhupada mentions it in his purport. Right. So Prabhupada says that the variegatedness of the material world, it cannot be compared to the variegatedness of the spiritual world. And in the third canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, Prabhupada discusses how the impersonalists, they are unfortunate because they cannot understand the transcendental variegatedness of the spiritual world. Such persons are described as being afraid to talk about the beauty of the Vaikuntha planets, right? And its variegatedness, foolishly considering such topics to be tasteless and to be ordinary, right? As just being ordinary topics. And of course, throughout the Srimad Bhagavatam, the variegatedness of the Vaikuntha planets is discussed in relation to the transcendental pastimes of Krishna and his associates. Now, again, in the third canto of the Bhagavatam, Prabhupada discusses how spiritual variegatedness means that everything is animate. Right? Everything is animate. The trees are animate, the plants, the ground is animate, the birds are animate, the flowers, the sky, the mountains, the water, the animals. Everything is animate and are on the level of Krishna consciousness. Right? And all entities there, they manifest their own personal individual natures in their devotional service for the Lord. So this is what is meant by spiritual variegatedness. And in a 1968 lecture in Los Angeles, Srila Prabhupada discusses how variety is the mother of enjoyment. Right? As soon as you add variety to something, it becomes very enjoyable. Right? We can experience that ourselves. So this variegatedness that brings joy, exhilaration, and happiness to the experiences of all living beings, it is unfathomably greater within the spiritual realm than what it is in the material realm. And that spiritual variegatedness, it is described as being absolute, it is blissful, and it is the essence of the ecstatic activities that are experienced by the denizens of the spiritual planets. In such planets, everything is meant for the pleasure of the Supreme Lord, who reciprocates with his devotees by increasing and expanding that blissful variegatedness. Right, it sort of goes on and on. So, just want to mention something out of the journey of self-discovery. So this is a little excerpt from 6.2. In the material world, these spiritual varieties are merely reflected, just like trees on a riverbank. A tree is reflected in the water, but reflected how? Upside down. Similarly, this material world is a reflection of the spiritual world, but a perverted reflection. Right, so the varieties found within the spiritual realm, they replicate themselves in a perverted, or we can even say in a corrupted way here within our material manifestation. Right? And because there is corruption, we can only experience a portion of that original spiritual variegatedness. So many of the higher and we might say finer aspects of variegatedness on the spiritual platform, they cannot actually be accommodated by the gross mundane gunas, right, of the material realm, and therefore we do not experience them here. And in its purport, Prabhupada uses the words shadow phantasmagoria to explain this surreal and eclipsed manifestation of Krishna's energies. So according to the dictionary, I really like looking up the meanings of words that Prabhupada uses, because Prabhupada, would choose his words perfectly, and it's very interesting to look up the exact meaning of them. So the dictionary meaning of the word phantasmagoria is a sequence of real or imaginary images like that seen in a dream. Right? And Prabhupada has explained that because the spiritual soul exists separately from any of the so-called calamities in this world, therefore, this material existence or this material experience, we could say, that we are caught up in, it may be portrayed as a dreamlike image of the spiritual world. And we also know that a number of times Srila Prabhupada has used this analogy, where a man is dreaming that he's being chased and he's being caught and he's being eaten by a tiger, it could be any other type of calamity, atrocity that's happening. But as soon as the man wakes up, or as soon as he stops imagining, then again he understands that such atrocities, they are not actually what he is experiencing, because such atrocities are not situated on the absolute platform of experience, shall we say. And so Prabhupada also mentions this shloka in its purport, Bhagavad Gita 9:11. Right, fools deride me when I descend in the human form. They do not know my transcendental nature as the Supreme Lord of all that be. Right, so the word deride means actually to ridicule or to mock someone. Right, and this is Prabhupada has quite a lengthy purport to 9:11, and throughout this purport he is discussing that this derision or this ridicule of Krishna by the atheists is primarily based on them considering Krishna to be an ordinary common man. Right? So foolish people, less intelligent people, they look up on Krishna as being just like themselves. Right? And therefore they imagine that there is some fault in him. Right? But Krishna is of course entirely without fault, he is without corruption, and he is certainly beyond derision and any sort of ridicule. So, right, so now we are returning to the chapter 7 in the Bhagavad Gita. Right, so first of all we have 7.5. Besides this, O mighty Amrajuna, there is another superior energy of mine, which comprises the living entities who are exploiting the resources of this material inferior nature. Right, so Krishna is explaining to Arjuna, that the living beings, yes, they are of the superior energy or superior nature, opposite in quality to matter, but they are exploiting or abusing, we could say, the material energy because most of them fail to understand that Krishna's material facilities are solely available for them to use for yajna. First of all, I was going to mention the word exploit. Actually, the words abuse and misuse are actually synonyms of the word exploit. So, the material embodied soul doesn't actually understand how his misuse or abuse or exploitation of his environment leads him to his own ignorance, but it is a fact, right? This phenomena, it is a little bit cosmic in one sense because all the objects that surround us here, right, in our ordinary mundane environments, they are manifest here for us to use in yajna, for offering to the Supreme Lord. Right? They really do have no other purpose. Right? Everything on this planet is intended for yajna, for the Supreme Lord in one way or other. Right? And in Bhagavad Gita, chapter 3, text 13, Krishna is explaining that with food, for example, right, if food has not first been offered to him, then we are actually eating sin. Right. This is the effect of not offering everything in our daily lives, to Krishna. Everything in our environments, it needs to be engaged in our yoga, we could say, right, in our bhakti yoga, in our offerings to the Supreme Lord, and. Right, let's have a look at the next one. In chapter 7, right, so we have another 2 here that I want to mention. So, 7.20, right, those whose intelligence has been stolen by material desire surrender unto demigods and follow the particular rules and regulations of worship according to their own natures. Right, and of course those who are worshipping deities other than Krishna or deities other than Vishnu Tattva deities, they are actually just pursuing material goals, and this becomes disturbing to other living beings. Right? And we have that last one there, 7.25, right? I'm never manifest to the foolish and intelligent, for them I'm covered by my internal potency, and therefore they do not know that I'm unborn and infallible. Right? So here Krishna is just saying it plainly that he is not manifest to the foolish and unintelligent people who have no interest in learning about him and who have no interest in performing yajna, right, performing sacrifices, using this material planet in the right way. Right? And usually when we think of something covering something else up so that we can't see it, usually we think of an external object covering something that is internal. Right? But in the case of Krishna's internal potency, right, because it is the superior potency, it actually has the full capacity to obscure the atheist's perception of Krishna when he so desires. Right? So that concludes our little look into chapter 7 of the Bhagavad Gita. Right, so just to finish off, right, for the devotees, Krishna remains manifest in his full, blissful, sublime, transcendental form, performing his loving pastimes and reciprocating loving dealings with his devotees. So Krishna's devotees are not bewildered by the harsh external material energy that otherwise blinds and confuses the impersonalists. Devotees remain fully surrendered to Krishna in a loving mood, and that renders them able to perceive and understand Krishna as the cause of all causes and as the source of both the spiritual and material realms. In the Mahabharata, we learn that it was Krishna's unalloyed devotees, such as Queen Kunti, the Pandavas, Bhishma Dev, who knew who Krishna was. They could see him properly. Whereas others, such as, for example, Shishupal and Kamsa, are described as not being able to see Krishna properly and therefore not understanding who he is. Okay, well, that is all that I have prepared for this class today. Thank you very much for listening. Does anyone have anything to add or any questions, any comments? Nothing? Oh, I think we have a taker from outside.
You can repeat my question maybe. So
all right.
there is, like, the confusion is there that we all thought that Lord Brahma's planet is, just another material planet which is the soul, and the universe is the soul, and Brahma pulled another car from the planet of Lord Brahma down to the lowest planet, all temporary, places of misery. So here we are getting some information. The same name, but is it the same planet that's being discussed here in the translation? It's a little bit sort of clouded.
It is a little bit mysterious, I suppose. I'm looking for... Yeah, there is one sentence. Let me see if I can find it in the purport that I think is going to respond to your query. Did everyone hear Vasishrestha Prabhu's asking about the nature, the true nature of this Brahmaloka planet in terms of the dissolution of the material planets and so forth? See if I can find this one. I can't find it, it's such a long purport. I think, Prabhupada says something like, it is not exactly the same. Let's have a look. Okay, I can't find the exact sentence because it's can you read it out, please, Prabhu? Yeah.
It says, but the Brahmaloka mentioned here is not the same as the Satyaloka planetary system. This Brahmaloka is eternal, whereas the Satyaloka planetary system is not eternal. And to distinguish between the two, the adjective sanatana has been used in this case. Keep going.
Yeah, there was one sentence in particular that I was looking for.
According to Jiva Goswami,
yeah.
Brahmaloka is the loka or abode of Brahman.
Yeah,
Or
yeah,
Lord.
yeah. Okay, thank you very much, Prabhu. Yeah, so there was a particular sentence I was looking for, but Srila Prabhupada is saying, as Prabhu mentioned that, this is Srila Jiva Goswami. He is saying that this is a different, it's a different loka, Right. So I don't think I personally have much more to comment on that. I mean, you've given me a hard question, except that what we do know is that everything within the material cosmos is annihilated at some point or another, and everything that is not material is not annihilated. That's probably all I can mention on your extremely cosmic question. Does anyone else have anything to add to that? Yes, Prabhu?
This is like spiritual work.
Yeah.
There is spelling different. This is like Brahma, and this is Brahma. This is Brahma. This is
Yeah.
Brahma. It's like spiritual Brahma.
Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah. So, is Prabhu, what is your name, Prabhu?
Chaitanya.
Chaitanya has just pointed out that the
This is Brahma.
the spelling of this Brahmaloka in this particular verse is actually different to how we normally spell the Brahmaloka that is equal to Satyaloka. Yeah. So this is how Srila Prabhupada presents it, and perhaps if there are some devotees who are cosmologists, they could probably add even more to that. All right, well, thank you all very much. Jai. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.